You guys looking for candy bars?
You got free stuff, bring it out.
We praised you before you got here, Jerry. Ken didn't want you to hear it and have it go to your head, so we did it behind your back.
Used to that.
Since it's now going on record, I thought your memo was very helpful on the survey. I liked your ideas for addition.
And I agreed.
Hopefully.
I'm looking forward to being the only board member that never got it, so.
Oh, you know what it feels like to be discriminated against.
Okay.
Here we go.
We can go on. Yeah.
Okay, we have the board present. We have a number of residents present. I understand there's some people coming in online. Let's start. We'll start with the roll call. Paul?
Okay, we have Jim Carter here, Nathaniel Monks, Ray Zobot, Matt Barker, Jerry Carbone, and Ken Evans, and Karen Gilmartin via Zoom, so we have a full quorum.
Okay, certification of the quorum, yes. Proof of notice.
Yes, notice was posted as required by statute.
Approval of the prior meeting minutes. Any changes, any corrections?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ken Evans. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Matt Barger. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. All right, let me go to the president's report. Let me officially welcome you to our September board meeting. Since the last meeting, we were very saddened by the passing of longtime resident and tennis icon Chris Bristow. We extend our deepest sympathies to his wife Doris, his daughter Liz, and his son Brett. And I know later today in the program that the court sports director Johan is going to bring us up to date on some ideas on remembering Chris and all that he contributed to our community. A number of residents are returning, so we're asking as you return to please check the website for hours of operation, the programs, as COVID-19 rules are still in place, and we're trying to normalize our operations as much as we can. But hopefully, through treatments and vaccine development, that we will be back to normal by early season. The second thing I would suggest to you and have you remember is to get your flu shot. There are more people who are going to die from the flu than from COVID-19. And so to that effort, the community center, we will have the flu shot available Tuesday, September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's Tuesday, September 22, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we thank Lynn for arranging that for our residents. I'd like to make a couple of comments on the food and beverage proposals. Since the last meeting, there's been a number of questions that have been raised. First and foremost, we'd like everybody to remember this decision is going to be made by the unit owners, not by the board of directors. Our job is to make sure that this project is thoroughly vetted and that you have all the information that you need to make that decision. Since this project is over $250,000, that's why it goes to the community to be voted up or down. The Food Service Committee over the next few months will hold workshops, and they're going to send out surveys to get input from the residents on the concept of food service for our community. So be on the lookout this next week for the first survey via Survey Monkey, and it'll be in your email. It'll come from the food and beverage group. And if a lot of people tell me, I don't receive it. Well, you got to look into your system because sometimes they get scammed out, sometimes they go to another file. So be on the lookout for it. We will have additional copies here in the community center. we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that you have that survey, and we encourage you to take part in it and to answer those questions and get it back to us as soon as possible. Because this is part of the research that Food and Beverage Committee, along with the workshops that we'll do in the fall, we want to get maximum community input. The timeline to bring this community to our project will probably be sometime in the first of the year. Any questions that you have, any concerns, please direct those to Paul Madry, our manager. Also like to remind you that the 2020 elections are upon us, and if you're new to Florida, the registration deadline is October 5. October 5 if you're new to Florida and you want to register to vote. You require an ID, and you require proof of residence. I'll remind you, we don't vote the graveyards in Florida. We have very strict criteria. We want you to vote. We want you to exercise that constitutional right, but please remember the criteria and what you have to do. Vote by mail. The last request date is October 24th. So if you're going to vote absentee, you have to make that request by the 24th of October. Early voting will begin October 19 through 31, and election day is November 3rd. All of this is posted on our website, and if you have any questions, any of us a call, we're happy to assist you. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to our treasurer.
Thank you, Jim. As I've done the last couple of months, I'm going to shorten some of the detail and focus on a couple of highlights. Paul, the next page. Thank you. I'll read it. Hopefully you can read it, but I will read it with you. It's just a summary to give you an idea of where we are. Strong growth in total cash versus year end and prior year, and I will have some spreadsheets for you to visualize after this. Strong growth in capital and reserve funds due to very strong resales and the resulting resale fees. Revenues are ahead of both budget and prior year in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. Expenses were lower than budget in prior years. Again, I would congratulate Paul and his people for managing costs during the pandemic. The activities center that you'll see, the improvement is reflected by tight management of expenses during the pandemic. The higher net resale fees are based on strong community support for real estate, not just in Pelican Marsh, but we've had a number of examples of very quick turnaround from listings in Pelican Marsh getting offers. We are continuing to rebuild the reserve fund and also rebuilding the capital fund since we completed pickleball. Last month, when Bob mentioned the financial side of food service, he also mentioned that we have sufficient money in our reserve account as well as retained earnings from past years to more than cover any of the projected expense levels, capital expense levels. And the concept of that program is to not have any assessment requirements on an ongoing basis. And finally, before we switch to the next slide, just a point about what's happening over the next 30 days. The Finance Committee, along with Paul and Jim, will be putting together the 2021 budget. It's our expectation that with the projected additional level of surplus this year over budget, that we will not have an operating assessment requirement for next year. The only increase that we're looking at as a potential for next year is the percentage that we are automatically charged by Comcast for their services. So for the second year in a row, our expectation is the assessment portion that goes to the foundation will not be raised. Next page, Paul. This is the easiest way to show you the strengthening of the cash position. If you just drop down to something called available operating cash and then look at the reserve fund and the capital fund, we have gone from the end of 19 at slightly less than 900 in available cash to 1,250,000. So very strong position in terms of the cash. Next page, Paul. I know there's a lot of numbers on this page, so I would simply ask you to look quickly at the revenues minus expenses for the different cost centers and see that basically we're running ahead of schedule across the board. And most of this is as a result of cost management on the part of Paul and his people. But I don't expect that by the end of the year we'll stay at 126,000 of profit, of surplus, but it will be well above the budgeted level of 46,000. So it'll be a strong year, gives us an even better position going into this whole food service analysis program, and in addition will leave our reserves still in a strong position. Now, part of this is, okay, Paul, next page. Part of this is due to, that looks like the same page.
No, it's the page before as well.
Hold on here.
Somehow you're just making it bigger. I want to go to the capital page.
He needs to click.
There we go. Thank you. If you look at, we've had so far this year, keep in mind we tend to budget net resales of 100,000 a year, and that's historically been our budget level. We are already net at 81. We've had a total of 94 resales, 13 of which were people that have moved within the community. But in talking to our realtors and getting an understanding from them, we have every expectation that that variance of plus 15 will continue to grow. And the bottom line is, if you look at the assets in reserves and capital, it will continue to grow. And I'll show you the next page, which gives you the bottom line impact of that. Can you flip it, Paul? There, thank you. So if you come all the way down to the very bottom of both capital and reserve, the capital ended in 18 with 300,000. We then spent a number of investments, some of which in 19 were pickleball, and we still ended up with over 200,000 in balance. And year to date, we've added an additional 70 some $1,000. So we will be ahead of our annual budget for ending balance in the capital portion, again, as a result of very strong resales. If you come down to the reserve funding, and remember that at the end of 2018, we had 62,000, partially because we had an assessment. That's the last year we asked our owners to separately put a contribution in for reserves, and it was the 65,000 that was put into the 2018 assessment that caused us to have a positive balance. But since we've moved all of the resale funding into our accounts, our reserve accounts. We've grown them, and the impact on a reserve year to date is over $500,000 of reserve funding. So we, in summary, a very strong financial position. We'll end the year with strong surplus and solid increases in the funding of our 2 reserve accounts. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just a quick question. Do you think that the sales are going to continue on this same path for 2021? I'm not holding you to anything at all, just for 2021.
That's a good question. The realtors believe that this is not a 1-year impact, that it's a multi-year impact. But I will also tell you that being a conservative financial guy, or guys, at least as far as the committee is concerned, we would normally stick with 100 resales, net resales as a budget number, but the realtors would tell you we're being very conservative.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sure. Ken, you said this whole setup is that there's not going to be an assessment yet. At the last meeting, we talked about each homeowner having to require $240 a year payment toward use of facility once it's installed,
Oh, you're speaking of the restaurant?
of the restaurant, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's correct, Jerry, but also keep in mind that's almost a prepayment as opposed to a pure assessment. That the expectation is that will help ensure the viability of a food service program across the whole community. And I don't know how many times you go out, but $240 for 2 people in my family would not last the first quarter. So I think it's something that makes a lot of sense, especially if we have the support of the community to provide food service, that we look to giving them an incentive to come to the restaurant.
Okay. Well, obviously, I've had some discussions with others who've asked me because they heard through the grapevine, quote unquote. We have enough cash. You're showing our resources. Why can we just not indicate that there'll be no assessment requirement to fund this project, that we'll fund it out of existing capital and reserves, whichever way you want to call it, because you can always pay the capital or the reserves back, okay, from the market of previous years. But the other side of the coin is, why don't we look at doing one other item? And that is, we have a $4,000 entry fee here. Our new owners pay $4,000 upon entry. That number has not been increased in what, 7 years?
I think
It has not been increased in the 4 years that I've been involved with the foundation. I don't know prior to that.
So what I would propose is do what we did when we built this building. We had enough cash, okay? We had to borrow some. And what we did is we allocated all of the reserve, all of the income from the new capital assessment to the owners, and we put all of those funds and distributed them first to pay off the debt. That's how this building got paid off. Okay. So if we have to take a scenario here that says, hey, you know, we're going to spend $700,000 or less, if you don't want to include the license, we pay for all of that. Okay, we attribute, okay, all of the income for the forthcoming year or two to replace whatever dollars we spend on that project. We don't charge anybody $240, and then everybody, okay, can come whether they want to or not, because it should be what we do with everything else. We've underwritten tennis $1.5 million since I've been here, maybe more, okay? And nobody's complained about that, but they get it. So why can't we have everybody's ability to go and come and eat without concourse, without cause rather, to whether or not they spent their 240 or didn't? Okay, because when I look at this in perspective, all we're really doing is guaranteeing a profit to whoever comes in. All right? And I don't think we should ask the owners to underwrite somebody else's profit. If this deal is as good as everybody says it is, and I believe it's got a lot of noteworthy position to it, he's got no rent, okay? And I think we talked about the rent factor is usually about a third of your cost of overhead. We're eliminating that, okay? We're even putting in items which if you rented space, you get blank space. We're providing refrigeration, improvements to the kitchen, patio furniture, the whole bit. This is a deal made in heaven.
Jerry, if I can,
But I have some respect for that as well. And we have the incoming dollars. We've improved, okay, in the last 3 years between bocce, okay, the interior of this building, okay, the pickleball, okay, it's almost $1,700,000 been spent somewhere along the line, okay? So my feeling is this, we've done that. Anybody that comes in receives the benefit of that. And reason the increase of just $500 is well below the mark of what we should do. It should be up closer to 5,000. And it's not going to stymie sales. That is garbage.
Well, let me just make one point. First of all, I don't think we're at the point where we've made final decisions anywhere along the line on the concept for food service, but we put forth the first approach at something that makes economic sense to the foundation and makes economic sense to attract the right type of purveyor. Obviously, there are other options of which, Jerry, you just mentioned one. I can assure you that all options will be evaluated before a final recommendation will be made, and both the Finance Committee as well as the Food Service Committee will be a part of looking at different options.
yes, Ken, I agree. I think that's something that is going to come up down the line here. Because as you said, nothing has been written in stone. That was just a suggestion as a possibility. And maybe with what Jerry just brought up, maybe in the survey, just to get a sense of how the community feels, without using a figure, there could be a question, would you pay an upfront nominal fee for the year to participate in the food service?
Contrary to that, you could put the other side of that question down and say, would you prefer not to pay any fee? Okay.
Well, okay. I guess that's the thing about
somebody's going to have to pay for it. They're either going to pay for it with some type of a minimum of like 240, or it'll have to come out of an assessment. But somewhere along the line, there has to be a way to ensure that the program is financially viable. And I think there are a number of options which can be evaluated, but
I think that's what Jerry is speaking against. He doesn't feel there should be that, but I really feel like this is down the line. This discussion is something that will come down the line. But possibly there could be a question on there that would reflect this particular discussion.
Any other questions on the budget from the board?
I just think that I spend $240 a year at Starbucks, so I just think it's crazy that we're having this.
So, I think this is a point that can be brought up in workshops and a part of the analysis going forward, particularly when you look at the 2021 budget. The question I have for you, Ken, is have we exhausted all of the credits from Comcast at this point, or do we have a portion of that left to apply as we've done the last couple of years, so that we didn't have to pass a increase Comcast onto to our revenue?
We have credit left, which we will be using in 2021.
Okay, and my suggestion to the Finance Committee as we go through this is if you look at the amount that we are generating and the fact that we used to use part of operating to offset expenses for the foundation, of which we're not doing anymore, perhaps in this year, with everything that's going on, then we might take a portion of that along with the credits from Comcast so that there isn't any increase at all to the residents of Pelican Marsh for that service or for the operating of this foundation. So I would like you to, and your finance team, to take a look at that and make that a part of the budget.
Okay, I fully understand where you're heading, Jim, and I will ensure that when we make the first cut, we will show the impact of some options that the board can evaluate.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on budget from?
Well, let me finish. The hand grenade is the fact that I would like to see the assessment, okay, raised to $4,500 a year. Okay, not the assessment, but the capital contribution.
You're talking about the resale fee.
Yes,
You'd like to see it raised
I don't see why it
$500.
shouldn't be raised. Okay, if we take a look at what we've provided in the last 3 years and what we're providing today
And what's coming?
and what's coming, we're underselling this product. And I think it's incumbent upon us, okay, to do it. Because we have to protect our own asset. Right? Spending money is easy, but getting money in, okay,
It would appear to me that, that each quarter, we're gradually building up all of our reserve accounts because the fee is already bringing in more money than we need.
right, but we've not put that money into the basis that it was originally intended to, okay? It's built up your capital and your reserves,
We're building up our capital and our reserves every quarter.
okay?
So if we're building up our capital and reserves every quarter, why do we need more money?
Because we haven't been attributing it to it. If we have it in, okay, if we go out and do this and pay out cash, you replace that cash with the $4,500 fee. Okay? You're gonna exhaust your cash situation is what he's saying.
The reason we have all this cash is because we have more coming in than we need.
Well, that's great. That way, you know what the whole premise was year back when we were really doing things for the members here? We were trying to reduce the annual dues to the members. All we keep doing is accumulating dollars so we can figure out a way of how to spend them.
But that's our
Well,
choice.
can I interrupt? I think we're beyond the points of the meeting. I would make the following recommendation, and that is that any decision towards any change in resale fees needs two things to keep in mind. One, we still have a number of units that sell for something in order of $300,000 to $400,000 a year, or to buy. $4,000 represents a significant portion of the cost of buying. So we need to look at the competition in Pelican Marsh, in Pelican Bay, in all the other communities, in what they charge for resale and what they get for it. That's number one, because I know the realtors are going to want us to stay competitive. And number two, we also need to keep in mind that the decision on the growth of money in capital and reserve, especially reserve, is based upon the long-term reserve needs of the association. And so in support of a piece of Jerry's point is once we are comfortable that we are online to be in comfort level at those years where large costs come in, replacement costs, upgrade costs, et cetera, then I think we can show maybe a little more flexibility in the distribution of the resale fees. But we went through this 2 years ago when we darn near ran out of money in reserves. If you'll notice the screen on the page, we had an assessment. We actually had to get 65,000 assessment from our owners beyond the resale fees to get the balance. So I think we're in good financial position, but I would hesitate to start making a whole bunch of changes to everything during a year in which we're considering the possibility of a major expansion of services through food service. So
I get your point, I get Jerry's point. Ray, you have a comment, please?
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on this point, whole discussion. Jerry makes a good point. I think bottom line for future discussion is he's looking to increase the capital transaction to 4,500, and he's looking to eliminate any $244 to the owners for the food service. That's the two items we're discussing, and that's, I think, should be addressed later down the road.
Well, I agree in regard, if you change the resale fee, it requires a bylaw change. It takes 2 meetings to do that. So a couple of things we could do here. One is the finance committee could take a look at other communities, take a look at how this might impact us one way or the other. And it is really a future discussion as we get further down the road in terms of what will food service and beverage be available. There's a heck of a lot of questions and research to be answered before we get to that point.
Jim, that fee has never been up, okay, as part of a bylaw. It's part of the operating base of this foundation. We can raise that, lower it, just like we do the budget.
The notice is required to membership.
But yeah, notice is required. I don't know the particulars, Jerry.
Vote
So,
on it. We vote on it.
we just can't just come in here one day and decide we're going to do it. We do have to go through a process. And since Paul and I need to take a look at that process in October, we can come back with that, what it would take to do it. We can continue the discussion, and the finance committee can give us some input. They're all meaningful and quality kind of questions to be asked, but we can't make that decision today.
Okay, but we have to have it in time, okay, for the budget that's going to be approved for 21.
We don't officially approve the budget till November, so again, let's get back and look at the process needed
Yeah.
to go through if and when the change can be.
I think we got time to look at that, Jerry, and see whether or not that would make an impact. And even if we changed it beyond a budget year, it still would throw off revenue anytime you put it in. So,
Correct.
okay, any questions from the audience? Seeing none, thank you, Ken, for your report. To the manager's report.
I recommend let's switch over and have the staff do the reports now so that they can get back to their duties.
I would agree, that's a good idea.
Paul,
So
can you get the, thank you.
we're gonna go down to staff reports. Director of Court Sports, Johan is here. Hi, behind me. Is it the same? We can come forward and make his report.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good to see you, Johan.
Yeah, good to be here. It's always funny being indoors without a mask on. These are interesting and strange times. It's been an interesting and strange end of season summer. And as a starting point, I want to thank the board, the residents of this community, Paul, Linda, Lynn, Patrick, my staff, in particular, Victor and Sandy, who stepped up anytime it's needed. Their teamwork is invaluable to what we do for this community. So I want to thank them first. Second, I want to touch on the passing of Chris Briscoe. As Jim already covered it, Chris was a friend to so many people in this community. He was a friend to tennis. He was a friend to the Pelican Marsh community, and he was a friend to me. And so I'd like to find a nice way to remember him. It seems like we've done benches, memorial benches for people, and the bench doesn't seem like it's sufficient, a sufficient tribute in this case. I've asked for suggestions and ideas from people, and I've gotten a million responses. The leading response right now goes in the direction of doing a paver, an engraved paver out in the patio area somewhere, finding a nice place to put a paver with his name and some inscription on it, which we can figure out what to do exactly. The ideas have ranged on everything from naming a building or a court after him, to just doing a bench. But I think a bench is not enough, and naming a building maybe is too much. The other thing that I will do regardless is come up with a memorial tennis event, something like a one-day tournament, perhaps with a fundraising piece to it that will go to a charity of his choice or Doris's choice. And I think that would be a nice way for his friends to remember him year after year after year in the environment that he absolutely loved. So I'd like to move forward with that. I know that my tennis committee has been actively involved with that. Thank you, Steve. Angela reached out to me, and a lot of people have reached out to me, and so we miss Chris dearly. I spoke with Pete Menerich, and he's willing to help out as well. So thank you all. Moving forward, COVID has definitely put a dampener on a lot of things in our lives. Fortunately for us, and as more information comes out, tennis and pickleball, since they're outdoor sports, have become a little bit more accessible than other things. But I want to keep in mind that we need to still be cautious, and we still need to be careful and keep our social distance out there. We need to observe the court times, which we're trying to keep to 1 hour and 15 minutes and not 1.5 hours, so that we avoid the interaction of large groups of people. Masks are required in the pro shop now, just like they are here in the community center. And I'd like to make sure that when somebody comes in without a mask and one of our staff members says something to that individual, that we have the backing of the board. So there's no discussion here. Masks are required indoors. I think it's been proven now that the airborne transmission is much greater than the touch transmission. So the fewer people I can have going through the pro shop, particularly with masks off, the better, to protect not only the residents but also the staff. We are allowing guests on the courts, 1 per court. Our guest fee income, obviously this summer, is down significantly because for a good portion of the summer we had no guests. To give you an example, in August when we started really allowing guests back in, we were down from 80 guests the year before to 60. So we're getting some guests in, and generally those are people who are tightly befriended with residents. These are people who residents are going out to dinner with. And so I feel pretty comfortable with that. The lesson income for us, obviously during closure was zero. Having said that, once we reopened, Victor's revenue was up significantly in May, June, and July, and basically flat in August and September from the same months last year. So it speaks to the fact that more and more people stayed here through the summer that would have otherwise gone back up north and are using the facility. Our court usage is about flat from last year. Up a little bit, but basically flat. It just is what it is. I want to thank the residents again for what they did to help us during the time that we were closed. A number of residents stepped up, in particular, supported Victor for lost income during those 6 weeks where we literally couldn't work. We still have no chairs under the canopy, and that's just to limit the large group congregations. It's so easy once we put the chairs back out for a large amount of people to just start sitting around, and we want to avoid that. We are in the process of installing bottle fillers in lieu of the bubblers on the water fountains. So instead of having the bubbler where you put your face over it, we will now have bottle fillers that look a little bit like the speaker here, just to fill water bottles. We're also making an effort to go green a little bit and see if we can eliminate styrofoam cups. So we're going to promote water bottles that will be for sale in the pro shop, where people can bring their own, either a plastic or a metal sports bottle, and to bring out in the courts. Also a safer way to go if you bring your own. We will be participating in leagues coming up. I suggest that if you do not feel comfortable playing somewhere else or playing with people that you do not know, just do not participate this fall. Teams are going to be small. They're not going to be as many. Many clubs are not participating, so we're still up in the air whether that's actually going to come to fruition. But I want to make it available to those who want to compete. Having said that, for those who want to compete and who do not want to participate in team sport, in leagues that go outside, I'm making a push to do some in-house leagues, both for pickleball and for tennis. It's a place where people who want to play competitively in some kind of a league scenario can do so within the community. And I think it also provides a place where they can make new friends without having to socialize in an indoor environment. So that's coming up in the fall. We will also be including organized play, such as round robins and play by ability level for pickleball, in lieu of using the whiteboard, which is very traditional in the pickleball world. I have seen some videos from Veterans Park, who has that ever expanding pickleball facility, and the social distancing that's happening there is non-existent. It's a little bit frightening, and I don't want to end up in the same place. So that's it as far as the tennis and pickleball programs go. On the maintenance side, this summer we installed a new canopy, those big sails between pickleball and tennis. If you haven't seen them, they're awesome. They're going to provide awesome shade for those who want to watch and wait while they're getting ready to play. We installed wind flags on the pickleball courts, so the pickleball players now know which direction the wind's blowing in case they couldn't figure it out from the direction their balls were flying in. We just installed new lines on courts 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we are in the process of resurfacing with laser gray on courts 6, 7, 8, and 9. Right behind me, the project's going on right now. You'll see them out there with giant 2,800-pound hard shoe bags. It's a lot of work, but the courts will be fantastic for the fall. We've also ordered new windscreens for court 4 and 5, which have basically fallen apart. I'm open to any and all questions. I thank you for your continued support.
Okay, thank you, Johan. Any questions by the board?
I have one.
Go ahead.
I was impressed with, first of all, I was impressed with everything you said today about what's going on. But I was most interested, are we talking about something of the order like a Chris Briscoe Court Sports Center as a concept that we're thinking of doing?
Yeah, but my suggestion on that is, unless he left the foundation $5 million, I think maybe that's a little much, because it sets a precedent that's tough to follow up. You know, naming buildings or centers is I think a difficult process, but naming an event or doing something like that is more easy, in my opinion. But that's not a decision necessarily, but that's my opinion.
I like the idea of the event named after him. I think that would be great, and it would be a charity event. Sounds good.
Yeah. Run an event, provide a scholarship.
Something like that.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I got good ideas once.
There.
Okay, there was a hand in the audience. Steve, you had a question.
I meant to ask you this earlier. What, if we made any progress on the barriers between the rest of the sports between 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8, 9? Like barrier between 2 and 3?
No. If that's something that's, I mean, we talked about it very briefly, but.
Right, so I've gotten a lot of feedback from the tennis players, and they are pretty much unanimously in favor of this. I understand it's about $600 per barrier, $1,800 for the total.
So let me clarify. For what Steve is asking is, we have between courts 2 and 3, which one of them is now with our lesson court, we installed a netting. It's a very thin, basically looks like a tennis net, but it rises to the level of the fences, and it basically provides cover for the tennis balls flying between the lesson court and the court next door. The nice thing about that is that they are very see-through, and so it doesn't look like you're fenced in, but it does provide some safety and some barrier from balls traveling between courts, side-by-side courts. So if that's of interest to a lot of people, I see no reason why we wouldn't put those in between the other courts.
Is that something we should approve?
We're talking a total expense of $1,800.
So it's the $600 between every set of 2 courts. We already have them between courts 2 and 3, and so it would be a set of 3 more courts for a total of roughly $1,800.
Do you have it in your budget?
Roughly how much?
1,800?
1,800.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's 1,800 for the rest of what he's talking about?
can absorb it.
Paul says we can absorb it in the budget.
Fantastic.
Then it doesn't require a motion.
Does not.
All right, good.
I had a comment. Johan seemed to be indicating that on occasion, tennis players would come in the office without a mask and then be very resistant to putting on a mask. If you run into that, I think I could speak for the board and say, we're behind you with what needs to be done. People need to respect you and your employees. And there would be no feedback from us if you had to drop the hammer.
Yeah, I know speaking with Patrick, I think he's had similar issues. So I think if we can make that basically a foundation-wide,
I think we're 100% behind you.
that would be fantastic.
Well, not only 100%, but maybe there's something that we can agree on that would be more than having Johan or Patrick or Paul say something to them. It might be, you take a couple days off or take a week off and don't come back here until you decide to follow the rules. Something other than a slap on the wrist.
Well, usually we remind people of what they have to do, and most people are cooperative. If anybody gives you a bad time about it, or someone's a repeat offender, then there is a process by which we discipline people. So we have to stay with the process of discipline, but hopefully the people would get it. And if they don't get it, then we can move forward. But I would leave that up to Johan and to Patrick to talk with Paul, and if it becomes an issue, then we have an appropriate process to discipline people who don't seem to have much going for them upstairs.
I think as long as we have your support on it, I don't think it's a big issue. So as long as we have support from the board, I think it's not a problem.
This board has had this discussion before, and we have thoroughly given you, Johan, and Pat the authority to do whatever's necessary, and we said at that time that we backed you 100%. And my only question is, what have we done, if anything, for those who have violated that up to this point? Have you, Johan, or Pat, done anything with those violators?
Other than ask them to wear masks next time now.
That's what we have to do.
Are they
Having a
repeat,
rule or saying something is no good unless you enforce it. Right. You have to enforce it somehow.
are they repeat offenders?
From time to time.
Time to time.
Send them out the door.
We do have extra masks in the pro shop, and I think the foundation has extra masks behind the counter as well. So if somebody truly forgets one, we can provide one. So
Yeah, if it gets to be an issue, I would expect the directors to take that to Paul, and if necessary, the board will get involved, but generally management can handle that in their own system.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Johan. Great.
One last thing for Johan. I want to thank you for approving the 2 night teams for my wife.
You're welcome.
Oh,
I may have a new player for your team as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Johan, there was one question that has come up. There was a prior tennis player that passed away here, Jim Landon. Have we ever brought that to closure? Where we're going to
We have not, and that's something we need to take care of at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, we had a, back when that event occurred in the immediate aftermath, a couple of his, group of his close friends had asked for some formal recognition, and we brought that to Paul, and there was an approval for at the time to do the usual plaque thing and on the bench, and it just never got done because nobody ever followed up with it. But I think at this stage of the game, from today's discussion with the tennis committee, everybody is leaning heavily in favor of paper idea, which is ridiculously cheap and easy to do. So I just think that that's something we'd like to see. If it's a board matter, then we'd like to see that considered by the board. If it's a departmental matter, then Paul or you might consider this as something that can be done starting with Landon and Chris, and then moving on to those valued members of our community that we lose, and we can have some sort of memorial at the court sports area for folks who passed.
What about a memorial board?
We kind of thought about that, but we were thinking that we were talking about having an honor wall here at the community center with plaque, photograph, that kind of thing. But it gets into that becomes a community-wide sort of thing, and then there's got to be the idea of criteria and maybe a bunch of signatures to qualify for inclusion into that honor, and it becomes a much more difficult process. And we're looking for something that, at least at this stage of the game, we're looking for something that where court sports itself can recognize those our friends who pass away, and we have a lot of folks who are support some sort of recognition that maybe goes past gluing the flag on the back of the bench that isn't quite as meaningful for people, as visible as perhaps a paper might be more kind of a permanent memorial, you have a little ceremony, including thing, and it would be there's a lot of support for this idea. Anyway, it's something to think about. I just don't know who has to think about it before it becomes reality.
Well, if indeed, the process to me is it comes through the committee comes with Johan, comes back to the board and says, you know, we've evaluated all the possibilities and here's what we recommend, and then we can take action. I think what you're proposing seems, on the surface, I have no problem with it. I think it's a good idea. But as you go downstream and you have other situations, it does begin to say you have to have criteria for any of this to take place. So I would look to in this case, the tennis committee to say, well, here's the criteria, here's the two people, we need to recognize them by this process. Bring it to us and we can approve it so that we stay consistent. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Up next, we have Patrick. Patrick, you have a fitness report, and then we go back to Paul's report, and then we will come down to new business.
Right, it's been a slow summer for fitness, obviously. Our classes, we reduced them to, we have basically Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, and I have a young man named Levi who teaches a couple of classes in the afternoons. The classes have been limited to 6 people, especially in the group fitness suite. I feel that the group fitness suite is too small to have anything larger than that, and also my instructor concurs, which really makes the difference in some cases. I had some residents want to make the classes bigger, and I just don't see being able to do that. That room is small and the ventilation is not adequate enough. So classes within the group fitness room require a mask through the whole class as well, covering your nose and your mouth. We also have spinning classes in here, and I have a golf stretch class in this room. And we have fans going. The ventilation is adequate enough that I said when the classes begin, we have 10 feet between people, 15 feet. We have no mask at the beginning of the class, and they require to put them on at the end of the class. So obviously, we don't have a, we're limited on capacity, in all these classes. In fitness, we now have obviously an appointment system where you have to make an appointment on the hour for a 45-minute visit to the fitness center. The summertime, we have a limit of 10 people in the fitness center at a time. We try to maintain that. Sometimes we've gotten a little sloppy in the summertime because we really don't fill the slots at this point. So someone might stop by and say, is there anyone in the gym? Can I go in? And we check and see how many are in there, and they go ahead and let them go to the fitness center with their, obviously, the mask on the whole time. And again, in the fitness center, it is required that you wear a mask at all times, covering your nose and your mouth. I've had some, a little bit of pushback on that, but, a doctor in New York City has ran a marathon in an N95 mask, so you should be able to exercise with a mask on. The disease is conferred by aerosols when you're yelling, singing, or exercising. So you need to have good ventilation, or you have to be wearing a mask. Mostly good compliance. I have to remind people that they need to cover their nose and mouth quite frequently. That happens. Mostly everyone's compliant and pretty good about it. I have video cameras in the fitness center. When I have someone complain by email, I tell them to send me the time, what the individual looks like, and I can go onto my cameras and see who did it. And then I pull them aside and I counsel them privately. I really don't want residents being policemen. To be honest, it creates arguments. If it's a blatant problem, then they can get the front desk, or if they really feel like it's a big deal, if they feel like they can't be there, either leave or go ahead and tell the person what's going on. I mean, everyone can be adults here, I hope. One thing about the fitness center is nice. It has an Aon unit which exchanges air with the outside. Paul just
put in new fans in the fitness center. I've always had an issue with the old fans. They just were kind of contractor grade fans, and Paul replaced them with some really nice looking and more efficient fans. So we've got a lot of air moving in there, as well as the Aeon unit, which moves exchanges to the outside. So I feel like we have good ventilation in there. We also have a lot of cleaning going on. Mercedes, our wonderful new cleaning person, cleans in there quite frequently. My problem before was it was really hard to get a cleaning company to clean properly or frequently enough. And she's on a schedule. She does it all the time. She cleans something. If I need to clean, spot clean, she does it right away. And again, Paul hired her and set this all up. I've been through like 5 managers now. Been here almost 16 years. I've been here 15 years in August. And he's by far the best person we've had here for the job. He does things. I usually have to ask to do things. He does them before I ever ask, when it comes to something like fans in the fitness center. Anyway, as we move forward, I wanted to thank the board too, just like Johan, for the clear-cut guidelines I have with enforcing the mitigations that we have at the fitness center. I do know that you back me up when I tell someone that they need to put a mask on, and I know the community as well backs me up, because every member comes to me and says, I feel safer coming in here. I had a gentleman come to me today who said he feels safer coming to our fitness center than going to an outside fitness center because of the cleanliness and the fact that we enforce these rules. I do have a few issues, that happen. And sometimes we have people come to the fitness center, and if a staff member asks them to put a mask on, they've got to make, a little attitude, or I would really like to reiterate, I sent out an email to this effect, that if you're asked to put a mask on, please do it without discussion. If I ask you to social distance, please do it without discussion. That's my issue. Glenn asked the gentleman to put his mask on, he hung it from his ear and decided to and walked on through the hallway. It's just not acceptable. I need to have people respecting my staff. So it's an outlier and it's a few people, but it needs to be called out. So please be respectful to the staff. As far as future mitigation, I have to look at the future as if this is continuing. I have kind of had this feeling that people feel that we're ending, this situation is ending for some reason, and it's not. Maybe there's a miracle, I don't know. But with us, we're going to have more people coming in to the center, and I have to, behave as if it's going to continue. So in the future, we are going to have more classes. We're going to try to move the classes outside when we can. Spinning will go outside as soon as it cools off. Probably the same. We'll probably have class limitations on any class. That means there needs to be a sign up. Right now we have a 2-day sign up. You can sign up for a class 2 days in advance. Otherwise, what happens is we might extend that a little bit. But what happens is people sign up for classes and don't show up for class. We will also, we also try to make sure there are fans around the class so that when they're taking the class, especially if it's an exertional class, we're actually breathing pretty hard. There's some air moving around the participants. Especially in an outside, the chances of contracting COVID go down like 20 times if you're outside. So in a class like spinning, we're going to probably allow people to take their mask off outside just like we do. Again, as we've talked about before, there's no guarantee that everything's ultimately, it's totally protected. We've also considered some other things, putting training stations outside for our personal trainers. So we have TRX attachments out on the patio. So trying to move some activities outside is something I would like to do. So we're kind of, the fitness committee, we're putting our heads together around things like that. And also as we move forward, as I said, things have been kind of a little bit looser as far as the attendance on the appointment end of things. We're probably going to have to tighten that up a little bit because again, you have people who won't call in for an appointment and will just call last minute and say, is there room? And we let them come on in. When they'll come in 15 minutes late and want to stay later, that's going to have to end at this point. We'll have to be a little bit stricter than we have been in the past. Mitch has suggested our fitness committee chairman, who will be talking during new business. He suggested more signage. He made the point to me that if there's a sign up there that says you must wear a mask covering your nose and mouth, that if someone is not doing so, a resident can easily say, or Rich can say, by the way, the sign says you must cover your nose and mouth. So I'm implementing that in the next couple of days. And we'll continue cleaning as we have been at this point. At 12 o'clock, we close for cleaning. Mercedes does her cleaning, and I actually have a fogger that took forever to come in, finally got here, that we spray a disinfectant on the surfaces. And I actually, the equipment that we use in the group fitness class, I have a lady stack it on the wall, and then I disinfect the equipment, and then I put it away. And other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, questions from the board?
Sounds good.
That sounds great, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will go to the foundation manager's report. Thank you.
Okay, it's hard to believe this now been 7+ months since this whole COVID crisis hit us. During that time, everyone's had to make changes in the way we live. However, we have persevered and made adjustments to move forward and regain a sense of normalcy. And with those adjustments and additional safety protocols put in place that Patrick and Johan mentioned, I'm glad to report that the foundation has now returned to normal business hours in operation at the community center. Now, even though we still need to limit the group sizes to provide appropriate social distancing, we want to extend those available times for use at the center. So being cautious, we're now going to start moving forward to allow additional activities at the center. So starting this Sunday, we're going to set up appropriate seating spaced in the lobby and in Suite C to allow members to come in and start watching football. We'll be seeing an email blast out tomorrow on this, outlining the protocols for the attendance and watching football when you come up to the center, if you do so. The center reported, the CDD reported at the meeting yesterday they had that a new text messaging service has been implemented where you now can receive text messages letting you know when your guests or service contractors have arrived through the gate. The CDD is also working on additional upgrades and features for the entry system at the gate in the near future to benefit members. So stay tuned for future notices from them on these planned upgrades.
Paul, may I interrupt? Did you guys all receive that? For the people here in the audience, did you guys all receive that from the CDD?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And we're also going to be sending that same,
Yes.
and they promised to give us that mailing. We're going to actually send it out via email to residents too, to make sure everybody gets the notice and signs up for this, really good service.
Thank you.
They also reported that they're continuing to work on the upgrades for the replanting along Pelican Marsh Boulevard and the landscaping side of it. And they'll continue this re-landscaping project throughout the summer along Pelican Marsh Boulevard. In addition, they're also going to be pressure washing all the curbs and street swells along the street to make it look nice. And just a reminder that the CDD meets every third Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. here in the community center, and all residents are encouraged to attend those meetings to learn what's happening with the CDD and what they're doing. Now that the canopy shading along the pickleball courts has been installed, we are now shopping for tables and chairs to go in that area. And additionally, we are also shopping for new tables and chairs to replace the existing tables and chairs over the tennis and bocce areas, as that is part of our reserve schedule for replacement. Our goal is to have all new outdoor furniture for this upcoming season that's going to be functional, durable, and complements the facility. Comcast has now shut down the service over the old coax system as of this past Monday, and is now only broadcasting over the new fiber optic system. The office did its best to notify all the homeowners that the state was coming and to have all their homes converted in time to the new system. Unfortunately, on Monday, however, there were still 47 homes that had not converted, and they did lose their service. So we did notify everyone that they need to call Comcast as soon as possible to schedule to have their homes converted to the new system so they can regain their service back. A recent email went out from the foundation that reminded homeowners of the foundation's rules and regulations regarding the display of flags, signs, and other promotional material in their yards. The current rule states that no flags, signs, or other advertisements or promotions are allowed in your yards. The only exception for this is the display of the American flag, the state flag of Florida, or displaying a armed forces flag on national holidays. This has become a recent issue because some homeowners now display flags or signs in the yards in support of candidates running for upcoming elections. So we would really appreciate for those homeowners to take those signs out of the yard and then start following the rules as written. And lastly, the staff wants to thank everyone for their patience and support as we've navigated these new normal times and as we get ready for the upcoming and hopefully successful season. That's my report.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions on the board?
I had a question. I wasn't sure where the comma was in your sentence, Paul, so I didn't know whether are the flags only, American flag only available on holidays, or is it American flags is the only thing that's
So I
available?
apologize. At any time of the year, you can display an American flag or the state of Florida flag. On national recognized holidays, you're also able to display military flags.
Oh, okay, military flags, thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Not, we're going to move on to new business. We have no old business. And first item under new business is 10-1 Fitness Committee proposal to extend fitness center hours with a key fob system. Who's making the presentation? Mitch, you will make the presentation. All the board members have this in their packet for review.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Can you introduce Mitch?
I'll let Mitch introduce himself. He's chairman of the fitness committee, Mitch Steinberg.
Thanks, Jim. Members of the board and fellow residents. I'm here to present today a proposal which we think has been a while in coming. It's designed to increase access to the fitness room, the exercise room, and extend the hours available to our guests, members and guests and residents. It's a self-secured, controlled access system that is probably been enabled by enhanced technology that we didn't have some years ago when we first started thinking about this. So I know you all have the copies of this report, but for the benefit of people who are watching this on the computer or people who are not familiar with it, I just want to spend just a few minutes to go over some of these points that the fitness committee has put together. And what we'd like today is to have your input and suggestions, if appropriate, as well as approval for us to go ahead with this and begin to implement this. So the first point we have is that the demographics of our community obviously changes with time, and it's probably getting a little younger, and many people work. And so it's very difficult for some people to get in the exercise time and hours that they really would like to have, especially in the summertime when we close very early. And the other point I think that's really critical now is that we're getting competition. There's a lot of new communities opening all over, especially out east. And many places have secure self-access systems in place, and probably that's an important competitive disadvantage for us if we don't have that. And I think number 3 is similar to that point. Now, the other thing I think that's come up here, and it's really probably the most important thing on here, is that by having extended hours, spreading this out over the day a little more, we'll be able to accommodate more people without, crowding people into the usual hours when it becomes highly used in terms of a number of people. And that's obviously important with regard to the coronavirus outbreak that's occurring. So spreading out the people, the hours, should make it much easier for us to accommodate our residents and guests. So now, as I said earlier, the technology has advanced to the point where I think we can overcome a lot of the prior concerns about this system. Right now we have a fob system which allows access to the fitness center, and what we're proposing is to extend that to exterior door, and we'll just basically use that same electronic lock system. Now we're going to need, I'm a visual person, so I'm going to need some, when I get to the point, is to show you where this is going to be occurring, and that's on another page. But I wonder if we could, well, I'll just briefly summarize it. When the center is closed, normal closing hours, what we'd like to do is to install at the doors you see there with the arrow next to the aerobics room there, would be to have that with the fob system. So an individual could come in, and we'll talk about the hours in a second. They'll be able to come in at that point and then access both the bathrooms, the showers, whatever they need, as well as the fitness room. And in order to prevent access to the rest of the room, right where that arrow is, there's going to be a screen, metal screen that you would pull down and lock, so that when a person, individual, were to come in, they would not be able to have access to the area that you're seeing past that door. So that would secure the facility, the rest of the facility during hours when it's not being manned.
Mitch, that'd be a roll down shutter.
Roll down shutter, metal screen, that's correct. Now let's talk about hours a little bit. What we're doing is we're going to have access from 5 a.m. in the morning to normal opening hours, whenever that's the normal scheduled opening hour is, to 10 o'clock at night. In other words, from the normal closing hours till 10 p.m. at night. So the normal closing hours and opening hours obviously vary throughout the season, whether it depends on the day of the week. So what we're talking about is an extended period of gym access that could range from a minimum of about an hour to maybe 5 hours, especially in the summer when we close at 4 o'clock. This will allow people who just can't make it by 4 o'clock, and there's a lot of folks like that. Matter of fact, a lot of the impetus for this has come from people over the years complaining about not being able to have access. So this has been a long time coming, but I hope that we're ready for it. So the prior concerns that the board has expressed and other people have is, what about security? And I think we've looked into this, and Paul's looked into this, Pat, we've all tried to address this as best we can. So here are the points that we're going to be doing. First of all, there'll be some signs posted that people will be using the gym at their own risk on these off-hour periods. Probably, in fact, I think they will be required to sign a liability waiver. Now, this could easily be hooked up to the fob system. So you swipe the fob, and if you're good, you sign the waiver, you get in. If you haven't signed that waiver, it doesn't give you access. That could be one thing we can do. We will have a couple of life alerts available in the gym area in case you happen to be alone and you feel that you need to have one of those they'll be available, about 2 of those. If there's more than 1 person there, obviously probably wouldn't be necessary. Another big issue would be security staff, and what we plan, what we propose is that someone would come around, a security individual, at 10 o'clock, make sure everybody's gone, everything's locked and secure. We need a little more discussion on that exactly. We're going to have to work out exactly who that's going to be. We'll talk about that in a moment. Additional cameras now can be set up in the gym itself, but also outside in the parking areas, which would help facilitate security. And the last item there is that Paul's checked, and we don't need to have any additional liability insurance to extend gym hours when the staff is not present. So for these reasons, we think it's important that we do this at this point. Now, how much is this going to cost? Paul's put together a little bit of an estimate here that's pretty accurate, I assume, that shows you here that the door into the community center building by the aerobics room will cost about $4,400. The roll down screen, about the same. The security cameras out in the parking lot might cost $5,000. The 2 fobs will be about $456 a year. And security, this is $12,000 worst case scenario, where we had to actually hire an outside security firm to come in at 10 o'clock. That would be, but I understand Paul has put up the possibility that maybe we can have an individual or individuals who check the tennis areas for grooming and so forth can come in at 10 o'clock. The actual way this works is up for some discussion, but I could envision at 10 o'clock, the lights go out, maybe perimeter lights stay on, individuals would leave, someone would come in very close to 10 o'clock as possible, make sure everything's off, secure, and locked, and so forth. So basically that's the proposal, and we would like certainly your input, suggestions, and your approval if you feel it's okay.
Hi, Mitch, thank you for your report. Very impressed by that, and I know you looked into this deeply. I just had 2 questions. The access in the outside hours when there's no staff.
Right.
Once staff has arrived, am I assuming that that outside access by the side doors here would be available for people to come in all the time, or would it override it and then require the people to come in the front? So they check in, or is the key fob going to record everything? And then you really nail down how that's going to be recorded and kept track of?
I haven't, but I would think that we should, when the staff comes in to open the place, they raise their thing, and the fob is not operating.
They'd be disengaged.
Yeah, I would hope that's the way. And you can come in the front and then be checked in.
Be checked in normally. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my position, opinion.
Okay, that answers my question. The other question I had, you mentioned the security cameras. Aren't, Jerry has brought this up numerous times, isn't that supposed to be part of our security on parking lots and outside of the building?
The new lights have been up 3 years, and we were supposed to put up new security system, okay? And we have the ability through what we did with the increased Comcast program, don't we have the ability to put cameras out there that would run through the system?
I think so. I can give you what you're talking about.
The other thing is, if you got a fob situation to come in, you gotta have a timer on that door, so that it only works to 10 o'clock, or not before 5 o'clock.
Yeah. I think we can have a timer for the lights too. I mean,
exactly. And that all ties to Comcast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
the amount of things that we're missing from Comcast right now is exponential.
Has anybody thought about from 5 to 6, okay, what do we close at 9? at night?
We close at 9, correct.
So what we're talking about during most of the season, where most of the people are here, we have those 2 hours in generating
We're
time.
talking 1 hour on each end during the
So
season,
I'm-
weekdays, yeah.
Now, we're taking a look at dollars, which are not a lot of dollars. But I would prefer us to hire somebody, one of our staff, okay, to stay the extra hour, come in the extra hour in the morning, and get a basis of how many people actually are going to use it. You know, we always seem to find the smallest cat, okay, with the smallest tail that wags the big tiger. Okay? You know, it's back to what I said before. We got money, we can spend it. So I would prefer that we have an analysis of actual situation that says, we got 30 people coming in at 5 o'clock, and we got 20 people staying after 9. Because I don't think I would like to see the situation where you got 3 people that come in early, okay, that the other 3,800 people have to absorb their convenience. I have a real problem with that, always had.
I know,
And the other thing is the abuse that will come with it, because you gotta have a different fob for those people. All right? You gotta have a different fob, because if not, they're gonna pass them around, all right? Go down, you know, your son comes, okay, your daughter comes, she wants to go to work, give her the fob, okay? The other side of the coin is if they bring in guests, okay, how do we control that? Because they're supposed to pay for guests. Yeah, so, but initially, I'd like to know what the real demand is, okay? What the real demand is.
I think Jerry makes a very good, he's concerned about cost and about us spending money, and then it turned out maybe we didn't need to. But there might be a way around that, Jerry. This may be an all good news situation. Right now, we close at 9. So there would only be 1 extra hour. And so it looks like $10,000, $15,000 to extend this for 1 hour each way. But in my opinion, real often it appears that in the evening, there's nobody using this whole facility except for the gym. So we have a personnel on the clock getting paid just to man the gym all evening, every evening. If you do the math, if we did not have to pay that person all evening, every evening, this actually would eventually be free. This would pay for itself if you use the key fob to open and close the door instead of a paid employee who's standing there all evening just in case somebody wants to go to the gym, which seems to me like the waste of money. So I think your concern is correct that we shouldn't waste money, but this actually could be structured so that it's free by removing a cost that we already have.
You're not gonna remove the person that's out there now.
Okay, right now at say 7 p.m. we're paying somebody to stand there for what reason?
You
Only
have
to let people in the gym.
People, no, that's not true. We got people coming here to play cards, okay? They come
Yes.
in and do
It-
crafts, they come in for reading clubs, et cetera. There's activity here in those hours still. Every night, no, but there are people in here using it,
A majority of them are for the gym.
okay?
I would like to know from Paul, who knows more than anybody, Paul, is there hours of the night that essentially this facility is not being used except for the gym? Like at 8 p.m., will we find this place to be empty and unused except for the gym? Or are people coming in for administrative
You know,
reasons?
in the summertime, there's hardly any events happening after 5 o'clock. Nothing happens in the evening here other than the gym. And the season, yes, we have events happening. Lynn has things happening in the evenings. We have some events happen, but for the majority, we can find 3 days possibly during the season that we don't need. And the weekends are big too, because on the weekends, typically after, in the afternoons, nothing's going on except for the gym.
I'd like to see it whenever no one is using this facility except for the gym, that we let the key fob be the employee and save money.
I think you bring up a great point, Nate. I really do.
100%.
Well, and the other part is the summer months, we have very restricted hours. And this is a whole different scenario. And right now we're saying, okay, it's closes at 10, doesn't open till 5 in the morning. Testing this system out, and if there are any kinks in it eventually, it seems to me it could be open 24/7, because a lot of communities now do that. You always have access to that facility. And the security cameras, if there's any problem with anybody doing anything, is picked up. And my son, for example, their company manages 60 properties, and they have the same kind of system on all of their properties. And only one time did they have a situation where somebody took something from the gym, they picked it up on the camera, they called them and said, well, you must accidentally remove this, would you bring it back? And they did.
And Jim, to your point, I think we're developing a quality relationship with the CDD. It wouldn't hurt for them to drive by at 5 a.m. and at 10 p.m.
I think there's a way to do that. I think that the number that is there is probably, in talking with Paul, we had this discussion in the executive committee that there may be options to it. But the intent was to extend the hours in the fitness center and do it through a system where where people can get in and out. There are security fobs there that people, if they got in trouble. And that in addition to just the security cameras that originally were in this proposal for the fitness center, we extended it to covering the parking lot, was something that we wanted to do for a long time. And I agree with Nathaniel, but this will pay for itself.
Absolutely. Addressing Nathaniel's question, and maybe Pat can answer this. I remember I used to come in here. Sunday was the first time I came in since the fitness center since March. I'm very conscious of COVID. But I remember there used to be charts up there. Maybe in the front desk, I saw the charts that said usage hours, and you'd see mornings it was way higher, then it would tail off in the evening. And I thought when we got these new key fobs, we were also supposed to be keeping track of who comes in here, how long they're here, or what their facilities they're using. I don't know how detailed we got with that, but do we still have that usage tracking?
Certainly. Certainly, yeah, I usually post that every year during season, so people.
So if we can answer it's Nathaniel's questions.
The doors are shut at this point in time, obviously, because we don't want people, touching the door over and over. So the door right now, we're not using this time because of COVID, because that door would be, because the people are still asked to use their fob.
Could you speak up, because I notice our people on the screen are having trouble hearing.
We're having trouble hearing here too.
Besides
All
myself.
of you should have your mics closed.
Let's never stop you before I end you.
You hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
We indeed do have that data from the past. We stopped using it in the springtime when COVID came along because we didn't want the gym door to be touched. We try to minimize, a lot of retouching of surfaces, even though we do wipe things down. The residents are asked to swipe regardless when they come in the front door, so I can still track who's coming into the fitness center. I don't think they're remembering to swipe before they come in the door, but we do actually have a written log of appointments made for the fitness center at this time in any case, because people are required to make an appointment for the fitness center and for classes for that matter. So I can certainly go back and pull those, we keep all the logs.
And in a way you're asking for retrospective data, because we won't know how many people are going to be using this system until we have it available. Just because there's not anybody that's coming in at a certain time doesn't mean they won't use it if we have it. So it's something we just don't know until we do it.
I know that many people, like Paul, for example, when he goes home at night, he couldn't get into his gym at 8 o'clock. Part of the year, he would just get a gym membership because he works out at 8 o'clock. So in the summertime, if we have people who work for a living, can't go to the fitness center in the summertime because we're not open at 8 o'clock, then they're going to get a gym membership. If on the weekends we close at 3 on Sundays or 4 on Sundays, they can't get into the gym on the weekends because they work for a living, they're gonna get a gym membership. So we don't know how many people, of course, when we start utilizing the system, will use it or not. Doing an analysis on past data is not gonna tell us much, because it's hopeful, obviously, that people will start utilizing, as more people utilize the system because they have the extended hours, especially on the weekends and on holidays. And also if we contract the front desk staffing so that we have, no one, at 8 o'clock, there's no one coming into the building for activities. And if we have an activity, we staff the desk, obviously. And in the mornings, there's not you don't really require someone to desk until classes begin. Classes begin around 7:30, 7:45 at the earliest. So you don't have to have a person at the desk at 6 o'clock. You could actually have the gym be open at 5, and there's another 2 hours, another hour of staffing that's been, taken care of. On Sundays, Saturdays, we're open, and during season, we're open 7 o'clock year round. Don't have to be there till 8 when we have class.
I think this is great, guys. Thank you.
I have not.
Karen, would you like to weigh in on the discussion, please?
Yeah, I was waiting till, yes, thank you, Jim. I'd make 2 comments. One, we're talking about minor dollars, really very minor dollars, both for the capital expenditure as well as the security expenditure. And like Nathaniel said, if we think about it and we look through it, we might find that we're actually have potential to save money. We're also supposed to be a full service foundation, and I see this as a service for a large part of the population that we tend not to spend very much time thinking about. And I strongly support it. I think it's a great idea. I think that Patrick is doing an excellent job of managing the fitness center under some pretty tough constraints. And I think we're offering, given the situation with COVID-19, giving people a chance to have a facility which they would more and more like to use without having to go out to the public, to go out to gyms out in the marketplace where they cannot manage the virus like we are. So in bottom line, I think small cost, increased security, increased enhanced benefit to the community, and I fully support it.
Thank you.
I have a question about cleaning. And Patrick, I know you touched on that. If you're there, I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're listening to me and you're there. What if people are going to be using the gym late at night? When does the gym get cleaned now, and how would that work? Is that going to change any in terms of when it's done or how it's done?
Well, we can certainly change. We can certainly change the cleaning schedule as needed when that happens. Right now, Mercedes cleans the gym during a low time of the day, around 12 o'clock. All the residents are required to wipe the machines before and after they use them. As far as the fumigation or your fogging, whatever you want to call it, that occurs once a day in any case.
Okay.
And as far as, because we'll have security cameras, I can certainly spot monitor, our residents, make sure that they're cleaning up after themselves. And again, to address Jerry's concern about someone's son using their key fob, if I look at there aren't a ton of people. I have to say there won't be 20 people walking in the door after 8 o'clock. I can certainly check and see who's walking in the gym. And if their picture doesn't match the individual who's coming to the front door, I will call the person whose fob it is and say, we're going to shut off your fob if this continues. That's, easily done. That's why.
Okay.
Paul, can you get that screen cleaned up so we're not looking at it? And the pictures of the board are very small given that. Thank you.
Thank you. We got everybody back. I would like to entertain a motion from the board to approve this project.
So moved.
I need a second. Got a second from Matt. Any questions from the people in the room or who's online? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Here.
One opposed. Motion passed 6-1. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mitch. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, the second item on new business is approval of design review committee written report.
We didn't get it. Single page.
There was one application turned in. Homeowner lives in the arbors is replacing their pavers on the driveway, and they're using pavers that are regularly used around the community. So the committee approved and recommended to the board to approve also.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Board member comments.
I want to respond to Jerry and anyone else in the community if I can quickly. I thought Jerry's approach was, though I might or might not agree with it, good thought process. We need to think outside the box, as they say, and I offer an option to anyone. You don't need to wait for a working session. If you've got some ideas, or like Jerry, you have some other concepts of any of the things that we're doing that have financial implications. We have a budget process that's going to begin in a couple of weeks. And the end of October, we are going to present the first draft of that budget. So if you're on a committee that thinks they want to spend money, if you are a member of an owner and you have some ideas about any of the things relate to the financial side or any of the proposed programs such as fitness or food service, please send Paul email with ideas or points or anything, and we will take it into consideration as we put the budget for 2021 together. And in addition, just to follow up again on something a couple of things that Jerry raised, Paul and the committee will look at. We'll look at resale fees in other communities so we can see where we stand. We'll look at the average house sale in those communities to find out the relationship between the resale fee and the value of the property. And we will look at funding Comcast with no increase. So those are some points that were raised. We will follow up, and I ask anyone with any other ideas to let us know by early in October, and we will try to incorporate the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Karen? Any comments?
I'm good.
She's good. Any comments from the board members here? Audience? Oh, a lot of hands going up.
We also got 7 on.
We got some online too. Okay, let's take the ones that pop their hands up here real quick.
Hi,
Steve,
Microphone, please.
this is a quickie.
and Ann, and
Hi, Ann Selding, Muirfield. Paul, I wonder if it would be possible to have an attachment when you send out the agenda for the board meetings, some of the attachments that we've seen here today. The treasurer's report is a standard one, and then some of the other committee reports. Is that doable?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Steve.
Steve Burke. So I just want to take a minute to commend the president of the board here, Jim Carter, for his reach out to the CDD. As an amateur CDD watcher here for some years now, I've noticed that the CDD and the foundation don't always dovetail gracefully, and the relationship between Jim, the current CDD chairman, and has borne fruit in the form of this most recent initiative, which is access control. We had the access control guy, everybody knows over at the CDD. We have a board member who reached out to Matt, foundation board member, me, just a guy, a resident, and formed an ad hoc committee to kind of talk about access control issues. This is unprecedented, and it's really worth the community paying attention and understanding that the relationship between the foundation and the CDD is important in our lives, and we owe a lot to Jim for facilitating this and making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Angelo.
Angelo Scolari, Marsh Links. A lot of good and interesting discussion today. I was a little confused though during the budget presentation and bringing in a potential proposal for dining. And my question is, have we budgeted money to go ahead to look at a proposal for dining? Just where does that stand money-wise versus the committee's recommendation?
Okay, that's a good question. Paul, do you want to answer that?
The only monies we spent so far is with an architect to do a rendering of what the food service area would look like. And we had already budgeted under special projects monies to do that consulting service.
I just want to add the point that if any committee, whether it's fitness or food service or long-range planning, has any requirements for the investment, no matter what the need, they will be giving that to the finance committee, and Paul and his team and the finance committee will be reviewing. And if any of those requests are to be included in the budget, it will be presented as a working budget, and the board will be required to approve anything. So right now, there is nothing requested from anyone other than this recent one with the fitness center that is addition to the monies that were already approved for studies.
Yeah, I understand, but my question pertains to, like, as Paul's just saying, we spent money for an architect. We don't even know if we're going to do the project. How much did you spend? And frankly, to be honest with you, it goes back to my concern about the reserves. A couple of times it was mentioned during this meeting, reserve buildup. Well, you spent $760,000 on this building here without resident approval, under the guise of maintenance. And that really dragged down the reserve. And I don't want to see that happen again. I don't think you should be able to spend that kind of money unless there's an emergency like a building falling down, the air conditioner going. To me, this was not maintenance. It was a capital expenditure of $760,000. I think proposals should be approved by the community. Now you have the number of $250,000. At one time, it was $100,000. And I was at the meeting when it was raised to $250,000. And games
I'd like to make a comment.
Games are
no money is spent from the reserves without the supporting reserve requirement projected out 25, 30 years for replacement. It is scheduled and it is available to every owner to see. So when money is spent for reserves, it's spent to maintain the investment that's already been made, whether it's to spend it on the building or spend it on tennis courts or whatever. Anytime something new, whether it be pickleball or bocce, or in this case, food service, that requires a major expenditure, it requires the approval of the owners. So we're not spending money without the support for it, number one. And finally, by voting in the board, you vote in the responsibility of the board to make fiscally responsible decisions on an ongoing basis. So that's part of our requirement.
Okay.
I still think $760,000.
Well, I understand the past history and I understand where you're coming from, but I would say that's water under the bridge. What you will see taking place on this proposed project for food service When I say thoroughly vetted, there will be an RFP that goes out. There will be more than one contractor that has to bid on this whole process. And the community will have workshops. There will be questionnaires. You're going to know everything that it would take to make this happen. And the unit owners will vote this up or down, Angelo. It will not be the board of directors. And the $250,000 limit, you're absolutely right, because this project, as it's proposed, would exceed that. So that's why the unit owners will vote on it. Our job is to make sure you've got everything that we possibly can provide for the unit owners to make that decision. And this first survey going out by SurveyMonkey is an opportunity for the first cut of input from the residents. But that's just one piece. And the only monies that were spent, we do have a budget. We did spend, I don't know, maybe it was $5,000 or $6,000 to get the renderings and everything to present the concept. And that money was invested only to inform the community this is possibly what it would look like or could be. But beyond that, we're not spending any money until it gets down to the community saying, we want this and it's going to cost X number of dollars. And if they say yes, it goes forward. If they say no, it's done.
And not for nothing, but I've built 400 restaurants plus in my lifetime. And I think what is being prepped right now has the potential to be something that the community is really going to enjoy.
Listen, I'm not against it, just like I was not against redoing this building. I think there's a process that people should be allowed to give their opinion.
I agree with you.
And same thing with, I try to get a hold of the past administration regarding design and review committee. And the changes where it was given to, the responsibility was given to the communities. And Marsh Links has been stuck with an illegal door for about 3 years. And why should 33 residents have to foot the bill for legal matters when it was the responsibility of the board and its committee to handle it? And then when they dump the problem into the communities, they dump that individual problem as well.
Not familiar with it, Angelo. All I can tell you is that
Well,
the
you were on the board
community
at the time.
association, the associations has to police their own community. And if there's a violation of your bylaws in Marsh Links, then it's up to you guys to deal with the resident on that issue.
Oh, fine, well then why didn't you, as the board member, deal with it when it was the responsibility of the board?
It's not our responsibility.
Yes, it was.
I think
Go ahead, Jerry. Maybe I'm missing the point.
if you have an HOA, which you do,
Yeah.
okay, you have the responsibility to enforce whatever regulations there are that your association
Right,
has
I
put in
understand
charge of, and the complementary requirements provided under the documents through the foundation.
that. I understand that too.
Where we step in, okay, is if the association doesn't fulfill their obligation. In other words, you guys approve purple doors. And we say, gee, you can't do that, and it's up to you guys to go back and correct it. All right? If you don't correct it, then it could come back to us, and if we correct it, all right, it gets corrected, but at your expense.
Okay, well, Jeremy,
So,
maybe I misunderstood.
I was off the board the year that came through with that door, and I'm familiar with it.
Okay,
So,
right, you were on the board.
no, I was off that 1 year.
Okay,
Okay?
well, at that time, that was the responsibility of the board and the design review committee, not the homeowners of Marsh Links. Okay?
Well,
So what
that,
you're all telling me is beyond that, and what I'm saying is, I think you should take it back. I think, take your point, I think you should go after that homeowner and that door and correct it, and not have Marsh Links do it, because they are doing nothing.
well, I think that's a subject we have to take up outside this meeting. Anybody online that has had questions, Paul? Sure.
First question, will the flu shot be the high dose shot?
Probably not.
I can't answer that question.
Yes,
What was the question? Will the flu shot?
yes. Anytime we have gotten the shot offered at Pelican Marsh, at the community center, we have gotten the high dose shot.
Yes, that's been confirmed. I called up and asked, and the high dose for us seniors is available.
Oh, it is? Okay, that's great.
That's
There
good.
you go.
Okay, that's one answered. Okay. Second question, in 2018, did we actually have a special assessment of 65,000 from owners' pockets, or was that some kind of fund transfer?
Owner's pockets. It was a separate line item on the annual assessment. And every year prior to that, there was a separate line item from the owners for a portion of the reserve requirement that was collected through assessments.
I think the word assessment, okay, I think the word assessment is misused there, because what it was, okay, was an increased cost in the annual fee to operate. Okay?
It was an assessment that went to reserves to supplement the money that was collected through resales.
Next question, we should look at the realtor input and the competitive community assessment before we decide to increase the transfer fee.
Correct.
I think we've already answered that. Yes, we're doing that.
Next question, the LRP team has the above information for the top 6 competitors and to provide a point of view per above. I'm not sure what.
There you go.
Okay.
They have the information, Ken.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll bring it for the next meeting.
Thank you. No owner vote is needed to change the resale fee. That's from the laws.
Correct. There is no owner vote to change the resale fee.
But we do have to give proper notice, which we have to go through a procedure.
Yeah, we just have to follow procedure.
How will the gym get clean before it opens the next morning? Again,
Patrick addressed that already.
but we're going to, again, when we implement this new key access system, we will have to make probably changes to cleaning schedules appropriately for proper cleaning. I'm sure everybody's safe.
Paul, is the young lady you mentioned, Paul, an employee now, or is she contract?
No, actually, we made a change. We went through 3 subcontractors to do the cleaning services, and with all 3, they were doing subpar work. They were rotating different workers, and we were just tired of the inconsistency of cleaning. So we hired a person in-house to do the cleaning as a staff member, and when you add up the wage we pay her and all the payroll taxes included, compared to what we're paying for the service, it is exactly the same. In fact, we're saving $1,000 a year and getting much better quality service. This one is, you didn't type anything in, so.
Okay, that's all the questions from people online or on Zoom. Nothing further. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion approved. Thank you all. See you in October.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. See you in October.
Take care. Be safe.